Mainly, my connection is with a director who I trust and who trusts me. I saw Permanent Vacation and then Stranger Than Paradise. And I was happy, surprised that he wanted to have me. But I asked him why he changed cameraman, because he had one, an extremely good one before, Tom DeCillo, who I respect very much as cameraman and as director. But Tom DeCillo went another direction in his life at that time, I think. So he asked me to come. And also that, because you're also honored by the whole thought behind it, that I was more or less maybe cast or so, like the actors. And it was a real important part of the whole. The thing is, I trusted him very much, so I didn't have to find out who he was. So, and he never had a second agenda, so I knew that what he was saying was true. And he was not afraid to show his own incertitudes. And I had, of course, a lot, because in the beginning, I didn't know what form Down by Law should have. So there I got the most important directing advice or directing from him when I asked him, what should I do in this story? Because I have no idea what style or photography I should give. And he said, well, Robbie, it's just a fairy tale. And that was for me the only direction I got, and I was very happy with it. Because it was not precise in that sense. So I suddenly felt free and could do what I liked. And I felt extremely free there. And any invention I did would fit into the film. And yeah, I could follow my instinct in a way, intuition. It was a happy production, very good. When you see, we had so little people in the crew. I think it was 25, everybody included. And then you can work. And then you don't need paperwork to get moving, like in so many films now. Huh? You could say just loud, we start at 8 o'clock. In other productions, you need a mass of paperwork to make it people clear. And it's very suppressing, I must say, for me. Well, it is by far the director I most respect of all of them I've worked for in my life. And I feel he respects everybody around him, including me. Because he never checks images, so we don't have a video assist. It was absolutely nonsense, actually, in film. Except for maybe where there are stunts. Actually, it's not as stupid as a storyboard. The result is that people, when you have a video assist on the set, it's mentally a chaos then, because the people who are involved in shooting the film don't look anymore. They only look at the video, and they think they will see everything. They can't imagine anymore the boards of a shot. And I remember in my beginning days that you automatically knew that, and paid attention, and really paid attention. I think it was in BL, area BL. So lightweight and no nonsense. No, not too many accessories. So it doesn't become a technical thing there. It's whatever format you have, your special lenses you use mostly, huh? So there's also nothing very special. And you had night lenses, and you had the normal cooks for the daytime. Because night lenses are They don't have so nice depth of field. And the Cook are beautiful lenses. I actually never have a zoom on a package. Very seldom. Very, very seldom. If it must be asked for by the director because of his style of telling the story. I like it much more to have no zoom because you tend to be lazy. You just zoom in during the shot, although you can, with a mise-en-scène, you can make the same detail, but otherwise you zoom in on, clear. And I rather leave it to the audience to have their own discoveries without patronizing them by zooming in on something. It was a very logical choice. It is high speed for night and say it was that double X for interior and plus X for outside when you have enough light. And you don't have the grains of the high-speed film in your landscape. It was just a very logical choice. In the weeks before, I made all kinds of tests with black and white film. And the lab said to me, "Oh, this is like the old days." That means we developed it on a lower gamma. It was actually very basic black and white what we did. I tried out all the filters and nothing. There I found nothing that I could maintain through the whole film. Of course, you can do it per shot, but not or per scene. But you always have to find a thing that you can maintain through the whole film, that quality. And so my preparations were intense, but led to something extremely simple, finally. But I was always afraid of that the camera would make itself independent within a film. And my ideal at that time was that you should not feel the camera, not feel that there was a crew, or not feel that the light was made. It was actually extremely simple system. We didn't want to prove anything, except that the story would be well told, without interruption of camera acrobatics, you know. It's one of the reasons why I liked very much that the film was shot in black and white. Because black and white, yeah, it's kind of a poem. It is like you leave out words you don't need anyway. So, and I see that in parallel with color, it is so that color gives you very much a superfluous information, which you don't need at all to tell the story. Like at every beginning of a film, I think over why color, why black and white, because I never leave them out as a way of expression. Seen from my point of view as a European, is when you work on color, it really becomes very often an exotic thing. And we're not after exotic things. And it was a very good decision to do that, because a lot of shots would have really harmed the film by doing it in color. Because people would look at the surroundings, and it's like Dead Man also, that's in black and white. It's also good, because when you're looking at exotic landscapes, you're looking at the wrong thing. So I like that when you don't need color, leave it out. And particularly in the bayou, because in that time of the year, the water comes up higher, and for some reason, all the duckweed comes up too, and makes a solid, like tennis field thing. And people would have been baffled by that. And now it is just grayish, and all the exotic things are gone. Because it's already exotic enough to have trees in the water. If you want to shoot a scene in one important shot, then there's very often only one or two places that you can overlook everything. But it's for mainstream shooting not a problem, because you just cut it up and you get it anyway. It's more for directors like Jim and other directors that work that way, where they shoot their actors more as an ensemble, like reacting to each other in the same shot. So you don't need extra shots to show the reactions. instead of manipulating things, like having a sequence, shooting a sequence, and pick out close-up everybody to finger point that's how he or she reacts. It was all in, so they could freely react between each other. And I think it's just this. Close-ups are very often like in language you use. When you use one word too often, it loses its meaning. And it's the same with close-ups, I think, very often. The images, the shots standing so long for minutes, that if you don't have at that moment a good lighting, then it will become more obvious and obvious during that long shot that there are mistakes or wrong things in it. So you have to do extremely careful lighting for those wide shots that see everything. Then it must be perfect from left to right and up to bottom. Otherwise you see it's film and it breaks the mystery, the dream.
Stop! Stop! My friend! Stop the fight! Stop! My friend! Stop!
When I shoot a scene or light a scene, I take care of it that every corner where an actor will go to has a good lighting. You will see him. But so I don't restrict, and I don't like to restrict people with marks for lights and that. The reason for that is that I hate interruptions. It's just like a heartbeat. You cannot stop living and then after 5 minutes live again. That's what my main problem is with the conventional way of shooting. That you lose the momentum always.
Cut.
It's good, thank you, you can release that.
Where everything is cut up in little things and not so much a reaction between two people, but manipulated. And the terrible thing is that you are way too long busy with filming a scene with so many shots and interruptions. It's like a ship, you know, if it stops it, you take much more time to get it moving again. And the process of, say, the pure profession of filming is not interesting enough for that for me. And you set it up, something up with all the lights, and then my main zeal is as the least interruptions as possible, because you give all your energy to one big moment, and if you have to repeat that, you can only only copy it, and that's always visible and makes the whole thing less believable. Or what Lars von Trier once said to me, I don't want to do, in principle, I don't want to do more than 1 or 2 shots, because then the actors, start acting. And it's also a thing where I like this, how you say it, independent film. But I think the time is over also because also totally invaded by the union. And the bad thing about this, and I like to have it on a DVD, because I think the mentality and the coherence within the team is kaput, because everybody thinks of his own department. And we didn't have problems with that at Down by Law, because we still were free and were in a right of, how do you say it, right of work state. So you could help each other. And the things that happened after me in the kind of more organized, say, mainstream-like films, where there was a coherence was gone. Everybody was taking care of his own department, that's it. Helping each other was out of the questions, because then you break those rules. And that is suffocating. It's very bad. First of all, I think I'm not a bad operator. I did it my whole life, except when I was forbidden by the union. Happy. And now they're so far even after me when I'm doing that. Maybe you can compare it with somebody gives you an order to make a painting, and with a big white canvas, and you make a painting on that, and there's somebody else who cuts out the frame, makes their own cut into the painting. When you are disconnected, an operator, he's kind of disconnected with the center. He only does his job. I mean, that I've seen that very often, that people feel less responsible, don't help with lighting, don't learn from lighting. I'm talking about the operating job. And they have less to lose. They only want to have the depth of focus, their focus, and their marks. I have no systems, no ideas how it should be done. I find it on the set. So it's like with the script, I even can shoot on the set. I can accept shooting on the set I even don't know. I've never seen before. It's like meeting somebody else, you know. You have to adapt right away to the situation. And I never was after beauty, because I think pure beauty destroys the drama very often. Except when beauty would be an integral part of the story. I remember it was very low key, very low light, and in such a way that we had to actually use the street lamps as lighting. So I mean, very, very low fill lights, so you will see, even with no lights, you would still see them. But then at every street pole light would have an effect on the scene. So that's why you have the moving lights. They were real. I think I was on 1.4. It was wide open lens. Luckily, we didn't have a scene outside that you had to see, because you become out of focus, of course. You have to make your choice there. Blocking is the most important thing. So you must make a light where the blocking can take place. And if it's a general light, like this grayish light in prison, then you have it actually. It is the light the prisoners live in also, not moody or whatever. It is just straightforward prison. That lighting in the cell was not very great or exceptional. But also, Jim wanted to not see the difference between day and night in the cell. So it had a kind of general, the lighting they have already, only a bit stronger for the film, for the negative. It was quite simple. You know, I thought only what was very funny, their escape out of prison, where we skipped the whole thing, how they do it. Many films you see endless things, how they get out of there. And this was, we could easily skip it for the story because it was not interesting enough to see how they do it. So that's why we had to find a location where they suddenly would be free, or show some way they went, and the sewers seemed to be a very good idea. Yeah, it was pitch dark, of course, there, and the only way to light was showing light coming from outside. It reflects in the water against the wall, and you see the tunnel then also. Maybe it's too beautiful, but it was the only way to do it. What was more interesting was the duckweed, because the duckweed, when you go through the swamps or bayou, they get lost there. And normally you leave traces. But here, duckweed was cut open by the boat, but closed again. So it took enough distance to show that they really had no way back, to find a way back. And that was a big help with the duckweed. Yeah, the boat was rather unsinkable, we discovered. And we had a kind of mechanism put on the bottom of the water with controls, so you see it, wheels, and from outside the shot, we pulled it down. First we made it very heavy, so it would go a little bit down, and we really had to pull very hard to get the boat down. It's always difficult to make night lighting because you have to see something, and therefore you have to make light. And like, you must fake it a bit that you see what you want to see, and still are not too obvious lighting a scene. It should still stay night.
Good rabbit, I like this little rabbit. What the eye is of the rabbit? Suddenly, the rabbit dead.
We had in the scene where Roberto has this long monologue about the rabbit. We actually have the light tower in the shot. It was draped with black cloth, so you wouldn't see it. So they can come from more from above and have no lamps in the trees or in the shot. And say maybe a rich production would have made the same towers but farther away and higher. And would have been a day preparation before you could shoot. And now we had less preparation. And then you learn that in your career that such things happen maybe once a 5 year. But this is a good reference. I mean, you always should have the best as norm. Even when you can't reach that norm, at least to stay alive inside, you must know that it is possible. So that's why I accepted last year's films that are the best chance to come close to that. Working with human beings and just okay people. It doesn't have to be all love and caring each other, but I mean, there's also part of this kind of interview that you idealize maybe what has been. But still it is a norm for me. I refer to that very often in the back of my head. And the things what I learned there, I want that same mentality back, but it's more and more difficult. I think that has also to do with the fact that he really insisted on his own cast, own cameraman, and not being dictated by his studio. Maybe I learned from him, or I say I happily recognize something I was thinking always about film, how film should be. And was happy to see that he really existed, a director like that. A human being, a real human being.